Hey, and welcome to the 60 Liter Podcast. This show is for those with an insatiable desire to travel and to find adventure. If that's you, you'll fit right in. Here you'll find travel tips and stories that nurture your mind and soul. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the 60 Liter Podcast. This is episode 1, traveling in Europe for 90 days with just $5,000. You might be asking, is this really possible? 90 days in Europe for just $5,000? I'm here to tell you yes, it absolutely is. And you may be able to stay longer in Europe for more than 90 days with just $5,000. So I chose 90 days because Americans get visa-free travel in Europe for 90 days within the Schengen zone of Europe. So the Schengen zone is made up of most European countries. Most European countries have signed on to this agreement. And if you're traveling within this zone, you could go from one country to another without the need for going through immigration control and getting your passport stamped for each country. So makes your trip a little easier. Now, if you go to the UK, Romania, and Croatia, they're not part of the zone. So you could possibly extend your stay for more than 90 days. But I do advise you to count the days and be careful because you don't want to overstay your 90 days in the Schengen zone. Alright, so let's talk budgeting. This is what it comes down to, budgeting. And you have to have the mental discipline to stick to this budget and make some sacrifices. So Americans tend to have this belief that traveling itself is expensive and that if you're going on a trip, you have to stay at a hotel, you have to book some expensive flight, and you have to pay a tour company that will show you around the country. Well, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to do any of that. There are ways to get budget flights. There are much cheaper ways of getting lodging. And you do not need a tour guide to show you around. We live in the days of the internet. You have your smartphone. You can research places you want to go to and just go on your own. There's ways to get there. You don't need a tour guide. And it's frankly is more fun because you're not stuck to a timeline dictated by the tour company. It's just you and infinite time, really. I mean, if you want to stay somewhere for a short period of time, you can. If you want to stay there for a long period of time, you can too. You have control over your schedule if you travel like this. So your flights. Your flights will be the most expensive part of your trip. Flying from the United States to Europe may seem expensive, but there are some cheap options. For example, Norwegian Air offers flights from Los Angeles to London and back for a few $100s. And if you buy your tickets early enough, you could maintain that $300 to $400 price point for your flight. And I encourage you to try to travel without a checked luggage. I found out that a 45-liter backpack holds everything I'll need for my trips, and it fits perfectly in the overhead compartment of an airplane. And these budget airlines like to charge you for every little add-on, from your checked luggage to the meals that you have on your plane. Some budget airlines even go to the extreme and charge you for printing your boarding pass at the airport instead of printing it at home. So read the fine print and be careful. But not having a checked luggage also pays off because if you need to take flights within the continent in Europe, not having a checked bag and having just a carry-on will let you save some money on the budget flights that you'll take within Europe. And in Europe, there are a few budget airlines that take you from almost every major city to another major city. Ryanair and Wizz Air are some of the examples. And like I said, same thing, just be careful, read the fine print, because they'll actually charge you for every little thing. And it may seem cheap when you first do a Google flight search. You might think, wow, you could go from Dublin to London for just £20. But what they're not telling you is how much they'll charge you if you have a checked luggage or if you want to buy something else. And like I said before, or maybe I didn't say it before, but just make sure you have a round trip ticket home, because you don't want to buy a one way ticket to get there and you spend all your money and have no way of getting back home. That is a bad idea. And typically, round trip tickets are cheaper if you buy it early than if you just buy a one way ticket. So make sure you have a round trip ticket back home. All right, so when you're in Europe, there are some budget airlines that are pretty affordable, but in the event that there aren't any airlines that take you to the place that you want to go to, try Flixbus. Flixbus, they have buses that are lime green in color, and they go from European city, most major European city to another major European city. So that's another option, and they're very affordable. I think I traveled from Krakow, Poland to Budapest for $27, something like that, one way. And that includes luggage, so you could bring luggage. So go ahead, download the app, or you could buy tickets from their website as well. And the funny thing I noticed was that if you buy your bus ticket through the app instead of the website, they charge you a surcharge, a convenience fee for buying through the app. So just keep that in mind. And also, I'll talk about this later, but some transportation companies, they charge you a fee for using your credit card, but if you use PayPal instead, they don't charge you a fee. So it's these little things that help you save money, and that you just have to keep track of. So yes, Flixbus. From my experience, they're mostly on time. There were some rides where they were delayed a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. And they have Wi-Fi on board as well. It's not good Wi-Fi, but it's good enough to surf the web for a little bit and send some messages. But the important thing is that it gets to your destination for cheap. So look into that. The next option for traveling within Europe are trains. So trains may sound like an option that's cheap, but from what I've found, they are actually quite expensive, and in some cases can be as expensive as a flight. And it really depends on destination. I found some trains going to some cities that were affordable and cheap. I found some going to another city that weren't affordable and cheap. So you just have to really look at the train schedules and decide, do I want to pay this much to go to this city on a train instead of taking a bus? And it really comes down to where you're at, because there were times where, although the bus would have been much cheaper, it would have taken 10 hours instead of a few hours on a train. So there were times where I decided to just take a train and pay a little extra, because sitting on a bus for 10, 12 hours just sounded miserable. So sometimes you just got to choose your battles. And in Eastern Europe, trains are really cheap. So that wasn't really an issue when I was in Eastern Europe. So it really depends where you live. I mean, where you are at the moment. And you just have to choose wisely and weigh your options. And the fourth method of traveling, which the opportunities may not come up as often as you wanted to, but is to hitchhike or share a car with someone else. So while you're traveling in Europe, if you stay at hostels, you tend to meet people who have the same destinations that you want to go to. And if you're able to drive and you can drive, it might be worthwhile to split a rental car. Or in some countries where hitchhiking is perfectly acceptable, you can hitchhike. For example, Iceland If you're in Iceland, you'll meet a lot of people who hitchhike, and the locals are more than happy to pick you up. Um, and travelers pick each other up when they're on the road. So it depends on the country you're in. Hitchhiking may be an option, but I have been offered rides to different destinations. For example, when I was in Luxembourg, I was staying at a hostel. I met a group of British guys traveling through Europe, and we had a few beers at the bar. And at the end of the night, they asked, "Hey, we have an extra seat in our car, and if you want to go to Brussels, we also have an extra bed in our hostel because one of our members canceled. Do you want it?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." So I went with them, chipped in a little bit for gas, and paid a little for the hostel. And I met some travel buddies to travel with. So opportunities like that will come up. You just have to be willing to talk to people and meet travelers. So, yeah, there are your options for traveling. You got a few. And you'll notice that the public transportation and the infrastructure for transportation in Europe are much more efficient and much more accessible than, for example, in the States, where depending on where you live, the public transportation and the modes of transportation may not be efficient, affordable, nor accessible. So I think that'll be a nice surprise once you get to Europe. All right, so let's talk lodging now. All right, so there's this misconception that you have to stay at hotels when you travel. No, you absolutely do not need to stay at a hotel. There are perfectly, in my opinion, underrated options for travel. I mean, staying, lodging, finding lodging. So one of those options are hostels. There are hostels everywhere in Europe, and it frustrates me when I'm home and when I talk to people about traveling and tell them I stay at hostels, they say, "Oh, hostels like the movie. Aren't you afraid you're gonna get kidnapped and murdered and tortured?" No, absolutely not. That movie has done such a disservice to people who want to travel on a budget because it created this image where hostels are a dangerous and shady place when they're actually a great way to meet people, great way to have fun with other travelers on a budget because most of European hostels have a bar. Some even have a dance floor and turns into a club at night. And the alcohol is much cheaper at a hostel than you'll find at a bar. And it's a great way to get started in the night on a Friday night with some other travelers. And a lot of times, if you go to the hostel bar and just like, grab a seat, there will be someone next to you traveling who are willing to make friends, and you could talk to the person next to you and start a chat. And if you hit it off really well, they might be willing to let you travel with them to their next destination. So why wouldn't you stay at a hostel? It's a great way to network, meet fellow travelers, and I mean, not free alcohol, but very low priced alcohol. And also hostels offer tours and tour packages that are much cheaper than you'll find at a travel agency. So that's another plus. Oh, and I forgot to mention, at a hostel, there's typically a kitchen, so you could cook your meals there. So typically, a hostel in Europe can cost between 8 to upwards of $60 on the high end, which you'll find in the Nordic countries like Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Though the hostels in those countries are a little bit more expensive, but they're still much cheaper than a hotel. And in a hostel, you'll typically get assigned a bunk bed in a big dormitory. So, I mean, that's all you need really, a bed. And inside the hostels, some of them also have kitchens where you can cook your meals, which we'll talk about that more later, about cooking your own meals while on the road. So that's also a great thing to have because you're on a budget and you want to save as much money as possible by cooking your own meals while traveling. So hostels are a great way uh, to spend the night and not worry about having to pay like $100 upwards to $200 for a night at a hotel, and not even a good hotel. It's like just mediocre hotel, you'll pay $100 and $200, which I just can't understand why you would pay that if you are traveling and you're looking to meet other people and have fun. Oh, and one more thing. Hostels also typically offer laundry services that are much cheaper than what you'll find out in town. And if you get lucky, some hostels will let you do laundry for free, which comes in absolutely crucial while you're traveling because, I mean, you're traveling with limited gear and limited clothes, so your clothes are going to get dirty and smell after a certain period of time. So having that laundry service is absolutely key. All right, so let's say you can't find a hostel, all the hostels are booked, and you need a place to stay for the night. The second way you could find cheap lodging or in often free lodging is through couchsurfing. So couchsurfing is a website where it'll show you a list of hosts who are willing to host travelers for a night or however long they're willing to host you for. And you can go on the website, create an account, and send requests to hosts to see if they could host you for one or two nights. And a lot of times they are free. If you want to be nice and bring them a small gift, that's fine. But it's a website designed for linking travelers to other travelers and just serve as a medium for stimulating cultural exchanges between the traveler and the host on their travel experiences, cultural experiences, and etc. And I've met a lot of people through Couchsurfing through their events as well. So Couchsurfing also hosts a lot of fun events such as language exchanges, cultural exchanges at bars and pubs and other venues. So they're a great way to meet local people, meet other travelers who are traveling in that city that you may be at, and do something fun. I remember when I was in Amsterdam, there was an event where you could go curling for a day. There was a curling instructor, a professional curler, who was offering free lessons to people who wanted it. They just had to show up at a specific time at the curling rink, and you got free lessons on curling. So you find fun events like that depending on the city you're at. So just keep an open mind. Some people may be a little hesitant to stay at a stranger's place, someone they never met before. But Couchsurfing has a review system where you go through a person's review and verification process, and you could kind of weed out who may be a good host and who may not be a good host. So you just have to read their profiles carefully. So that's a second way of finding lodging. And a third way is through volunteering. So there's another website called Workaway, where if you go on the website and choose a specific city/country, you can find a list of people who are willing to host you in exchange for work, volunteering work. And there are some really cool volunteering opportunities. For example, in Italy, I worked at a vineyard for 1 week. In exchange for the work, I got a bed, 3 meals, and I stayed in their guest room, which was really nice. And I learned a lot about Italian culture, Italian cuisine, and working on a vineyard, how wine is made, and got to drink a lot of wine, and it was great. And when I wasn't working, I got a chance to explore the local city, and it was actually a really good time, and I learned a lot from that experience about myself, about the culture. So you really shouldn't do that just as a way to get free stuff. You should do it as a cultural exchange to learn more about the culture, volunteer at a location where you can learn new skills, learn about the culture, food, and all that. But it does help you stretch your money and stay at a location for a longer period of time without spending a lot of money. And if lodging is your concern, that is a way to get a bed. So just keep that in mind when you decide to go that route, that it shouldn't just be about getting free stuff. It should be a fair exchange where you're providing them a fair day's work in exchange for food and lodging. And while working, keeping an open mind about the culture and the language and the cuisine and how local people live life in that specific country. All right, and cooking your own meals while traveling. I'm not discouraging anyone from trying the cuisine while they're traveling, the local cuisine. That's part of the travel experience, yes. However, that doesn't mean that you should be eating at the city square at the fancy restaurants every single night that you're traveling. You should be grocery shopping, finding the cheapest grocery you can. I remember in Iceland, groceries are really expensive, so the way you save money on that was one, go to a budget grocery store. There was a budget store called Bonus, which had a little cartoon pig as their mascot. And there you could find cheap groceries. And also, if you go to the grocery stores in Iceland, they typically have a discount section where food is about to expire. So you could buy cheap meat and pasta, pre-made pasta for cheap because they're about to expire, so they want to get rid of it. So that's another way you could save money on groceries. And I think when I was in Iceland, because the country was so expensive, I ate I ate pasta for 15 days in a row because wherever you go, pasta and oatmeal are some of the two cheapest things you could eat, and it does not change depending on what country you go to. Those two things are the cheapest things you could ever find anywhere. So you have to make some sacrifices, be willing to cook every day, and not be tempted into eating at a fancy restaurant every night. And I encourage you to bring a container, a plastic container, Tupperware, just so that when you cook something, if you have leftovers, you can put it in the box and then take it with you when you're going hiking or exploring for the day, so that you have a way of eating lunch. And I usually used to take my meals with me, eat at the airport or at a park bench when I was out in town. So buying groceries and cooking your own meals will save you a lot of money. And who knows, maybe you'll learn how to cook for once. I mean, if you didn't know how to cook before, when you're forced to do it, you might learn some new recipes and enhance your cooking skills. So maybe it'll be a good thing. But every once in a while, treat yourself out. Go out to a restaurant and eat. Just choose your restaurants wisely. There are cheaper options. The rule is, if you go to a restaurant and they don't speak a word of English, it'll probably be a place that the locals go to and will have cheaper options. So be adventurous. Learn a new language. And practice your new language. And go to a local restaurant where they don't speak any English. And you just order to the best of your abilities, or just have the waiter or waitress bring you something local without being able to communicate what you want. So have at it. It's an adventure. It's supposed to be an adventure. So eat at a local place. And let's move on to doing some sightseeing. So you don't need a tour guide to show you around anywhere. Every city has enough information that are publicly available for you to decide what you want to see and what you want to do. Every major city has an information center that tells you about museums, major sites, and that information center also provides free tours, walking tours. A lot of cities have walking tours that are completely free. All you have to do is show up at a time and give the tour guides a tip after they're done. And that's a really affordable way to learn more about the city or the place you're at and not have to pay a lot. And I mean, everyone has a smartphone, so just get some Wi-Fi and research some locations that you could visit. And if you want to go hiking or to a national park, I mean, all you need to do is get to the location and pay your entrance ticket. So that's really all you have to do if you want to do some nature related items. You don't need a tour guide. I mean, you're more than capable of doing it yourself. And this is the whole point where you go on a solo trip to learn more about your abilities to figure out travel plans at the last minute, and operate it in an environment that you're not familiar with, where the people don't speak the language that you speak, and you just have to figure things out the hard way. It will be beneficial for you in the long run because you're bettering yourself as a person and seeing how far you could push yourself. So just take that into account, keep that in mind, and you'll be fine. So let's do a breakdown. So I advise that you save $1,500 for your flights from home and back, and the flights that you'll take within Europe, and set aside another $500 for buses, trains, etc. So that leaves you $3,000. $2,000 should go to hostels, lodging, food, drinks, and some sightseeing. And your $1,000 that you have remaining should be a reserve. Spend it any way you want, but just keep in mind that you might need that $1,000 for other expenses that come up. So there you have it. Traveling in Europe for 90 days for $5,000. Maybe more than 90 days, who knows? Subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, 60 Liter Backpack. And I'll be doing these every week or two. So just stay tuned. There's more to come. And leave a comment. Let's start a discussion. Say whatever you want. You hate it, you love this, whatever. Let's do it. Have a good one.